Finally, we come to part 3 of the story, where we discover how disloyal Tarpeia not only earns her name, but meets a horrible, horrible end. And in fact, it was an end so befitting that Romans decided that anyone who betrayed their country Rome, like disloyal Tarpeia did, would come to a similar end. Remember that you must begin by finding out what all of the vocabulary means, and please remember to do that by using the vocabulary list that I provide. If you can't find the vocabulary on the list, just send me a message and ask, and I will tell you what it means. Sine is the word without. Mora means delay. Militibus means soldier. This is Tarpeia's name. Here is the word road. In, remember, means in or into. Capitolium is the Capitoline Hill. And demonstrat means to show. So in this story, I know that somebody is going to show something. And usually we show something to someone. So let's see if I can find any prepositional phrases in the sentence before I start to figure out how to put the words together. And the reason we want to do that is because words that are inside prepositional phrases cannot do the action, they can't be the thing that's being shown, and they can't be the person that's getting shown something. So remember that to know if it's a preposition, you're going to see plus accusative or plus ablative after the Latin word on the vocab list. That makes sine and in a preposition. Sine must be followed by the ablative case. When I look at the ablative rows on my noun chart, I see A, O, and E. And if I go to the plurals, I see is and ibus. And that gives us a little bit of a dilemma here in the first sentence because I see A, which is ablative, but I also see ibus. So when this happens, the general rule is that you stop the prepositional phrase at the first word that has the ablative ending. That means that militibus is not ablative, but something else, and we'll worry about that later. In can be followed by accusative or ablative, AOE. Wait, I don't really have to look, because I notice that after capitolium, I see the verb to show. And what have we said about verbs? Never gonna be in a prepositional phrase. So stop the prepositional phrase right there. I do have to know whether it's accusative or ablative. It's not A, O, E, IS, or IBUS, which are ablative endings. So that means that it's accusative, and I have to translate in as into. So without delay is the prepositional phrase sine mora, and into the Capitoline Hill is the other prepositional phrase. So whatever's going to happen, the showing, happens without delay. Now, the words that I have left over are soldiers, Tarpeia, and road. Who's doing the showing? Well, who's been asked to show something? Tarpeia. And if I look at her name, notice that it's spelled in the story exactly the same way that it is on the vocab list. That tells me that she's doing the action. So what does Tarpeia show, and who does she show it to? If you said that she's showing the road to the soldiers, you are correct. And then, of course, into the Capitoline just tells us which specific road she's showing the soldiers. Nunc means now. Here's Tarpeia's name. Ornamenta is jewelry. And the verb expectat means to expect. To expect. So who is expecting something in return for doing something? Tarpeia is. The sentence tells us what it is she is expecting. Can you put it together? Here we go. Next sentence. Make sure you look up your vocab. We have king and Titus. The word and. soldier, however. Then I have shields. Day, I'm told, means from. Brakais are arms. Then I have the word not. Bracelet. Here's and again. Rings. And deripiunt, take off. To take off, that's a verb. And I have the word and again. And then I have Tarpeia's name. And notice it's spelled a little differently this time. That means she's not doing the action. I'm told I have to translate skoutis by putting with in front of it. And if I look up skoutis on the vocabulary list, it's the word shield. And this verb means to beat. So did you notice that I have the verb to beat and to take off? So I have two very different verbs, and I've got and between them. And that tells us that everything that goes up to the word and must stay together, and everything that comes after the word and has to stay together. Did you notice any prepositions in the first part of the sentence? I didn't. So somebody is going to take off something. Look at the word king and Titus. Notice how they are spelled the same in the story as they are on the vocab list. That means that they are doing the action. The fact that we see an and between King Titus and the soldiers tells me that these two things are connected together. So it isn't just King Titus who's taking off something, but it's Titus and the soldiers who are taking something off. What's Tarpeia expecting them to take off? She's expecting the bracelets, right? The jewelry, the rings and the bracelets. What happens instead? That's what however means. Whatever Tarpeia is expecting, the opposite is going to happen. That's the force of using the word however. Notice that the word not appears in front of bracelets and rings. They don't take off bracelets and rings. What do they take off? De brakais, from their arms. The only thing left is shields. Aha! They had a plan up their sleeve their entire time. I don't think they ever intended to give Tarpeia the jewelry. What happens next? Tarpeia with shields to beat. Did Tarpeia beat them? Now let's think about that. If our story is called Disloyal Tarpeia, and Tarpeia beats the soldiers who are trying to get into the city of Rome and the Capitoline Hill, that's not being disloyal, that's being loyal, because she's preventing the enemy from coming in and attacking the city. She's not doing the action in this part of the sentence. It's being done to her. Who's doing it? King Titus and the soldiers. Let's take a look at the next sentence. It's very short, and we are told that we must translate brevi tempora as in a short time. Puella is girl, mortua means dead, and est is. I think you can figure that one out. Propter means because of. And you'll notice that when it's on the vocabulary list, it has plus ACC after it. That means that this is a preposition, and the prepositional phrase that it starts has to end with a noun that has an accusative ending. If I look at the accusative row on my chart, I see AM, UM, and EM in the singular row, And if I go to the plural row, I see OS, AS, ES, even the letter A. Notice that I have this AM, which comes after propter. So this is where my prepositional phrase ends. This is Tarpeia's name, and this means treachery. So her treachery was the betrayal of her country. This is the Sabines. This is the Capitoline Hill, and this means to capture. So somebody captures something. Obviously, again, we've had this conversation before. The hill doesn't actually do an action of capturing, so it's the Sabines who are doing the capturing. Remember, they are the enemy, and the Capitoline Hill is part of Rome. What allows them to do this? Because of propter perfidiam, because of the treachery. Whose treachery are we talking about? That's what Tarpeia's name is doing in that sentence. Can you put it all together? And now, the very last sentence of the story, where we discover how the Romans used this story as a warning for anybody else who decided to do the same thing. Postia, after, like afterwards. Then we have quandocumque, which means whenever. Whenever ulus, any, homo, man, Rome, prodit, to betray. Okay, well that kind of makes sense. You can kind of figure that out. Whenever any man betrays Rome, what happens to him? De monta Tarpeio de iectus est. And I'm told in footnote 11, I have to translate de iectus est as was thrown. Was thrown from where? My understanding in reading Roman history and about Roman culture is that not only were people thrown from Mount Tarpeius as a punishment for betraying Rome, but they were also thrown off of this cliff if they lied under oath in court. Perjury had some serious consequences in ancient Rome. I think today you just end up in jail or paying a hefty fine. But in Rome, lying under oath was seen as the equivalent of betrayal, and it was definitely not accepted, with death as the punishment. That brings us to the end of the story. I hope you've picked up a few pointers and tricks for making sure that you can translate the next story that comes after this.